I'm using my bigger timer today just to make sure I don't go over 30 minutes with you. It should not take that long at all. However, today I have a fun topic I wanted to share with you, and it's going off of what we just chatted about this week, this Tuesday, about authentic effort needed to make authentic marketing magic happen. Okay, authentic effort. And a big part of that discussion was fear. Negative self-talk in our heads, fear, doubt, all of the things that come into play, whether we like to admit it or not, about us succeeding in our business dreams, us really going after our business dreams, catching that leaf, if you remember that conversation before. And so I thought I'd do a follow-up to that, because we did a lot of talk about what those fears and hindrances and mental blocks and stuff like that are for a lot of us. But today I kind of want to concentrate on the fixes for that. Okay, so we a little bit kind of alluded to some of that in the last video. Today I really want to cover those with you, and there are at least 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 tips here that I want to share. Okay, all right, let's go and dig into this. So one of the first things we were talking about is afraid of personal criticism. The belief that we know it all, we know enough for what we're doing, that we're not very good at priorities, sticking to priorities, that we're always trying to put out perceived fires ahead of our stated priorities, that we're dealing with excuses and negative self-doubt and all of that. All of this falls into a column, as I was looking at it, it falls into the space of playing small. Playing small. Playing small is safe. Playing small is a safe place to be. It means you're not going to get ridiculed. It means no one's going after you because you're not doing anything anyway. Playing small, you're playing it safe. You got the nice, safe job. You're not going to leave it. Your lights are on. Your people are fed. Everything is safe here, and yet you still crave more. You're not satisfied in the playing in a small space, but that's where a lot of us play. And so, because playing small is safe, it's easier and it's more socially acceptable oftentimes to play it small. So what about the opposite side of that? If where a lot of us operate in the fear space and all that is playing small, then what's the opposite side of that? The opposite side of that is serving the world. Playing small does not serve the world. As my girl Marianne Williamson says, your playing small does not serve the world. It's true. It's so true. And so if we think of it like that, that any of those negative thoughts of personal criticism, of what will people think of me, of people thinking, who does she think he is? Who does he think he is to be doing blah, blah, blah. All of that are the thoughts, the attacks of the ego on the playing the small side. Instead of viewing this opposite side as we're doing too much and we're being extra or whatever, however you want to think of it, instead of viewing it as bad, view it as serving the world. View it as serving the world. Okay, so that's how we're going to think of this today. Playing small versus serving the world. All right, and then I super love this feather. It's so fun. One of my friends was like, I love your last feather. I have another feather, and now I'm adding to my collection. I super love these. Okay. All right. So now digging into these tips, 5 things, right? So how do you deal with, for example, being afraid of personal criticism and the risks that come with that? You're risking family, your home, your reputation by chasing after business dreams. Often you're leaving your safety net of your job, home, your city, potentially your state, potentially. How do we combat that? Well, one of the things is being sagacious about criticism. Sagacious is a wonderful word, meaning being discerning, wise about the criticism that you hear. Some criticism is good. I was listening to criticism today when I'm using this big chunky timer instead of my little bitty 5-minute timer, attempting to do these videos in 5 minutes, which is ridiculous and impossible half the time. So now I'm on to my 30-minute timer, which should be so much easier to get these tips out that I need to share with you. So being sagacious about criticism, and it's about assessing where you are right now versus perceptions. right? And taking steps to make up for the areas you feel you fall short on. So if you're listening to criticism, ask yourself a question. Is it true? Is the criticism that you're hearing true? Is the criticism you hear in your head actually true about you? Because if it's not, forget it. Who cares? Who are they anyway? But if it's true, can you take some steps? Again, take some steps to make up for the areas where you fall short. Can you actually make some changes? This is a simple change. I heard somebody, saying like, oh, she flips a little 5-minute timer and puts it out of the frame of view. And, for the rest of the video, we can't see it, but it's a 22-minute long video. And that was a 5-minute timer, so that actually made a good point. I never even thought about that. I was flippy. I just kept flipping the timer. I was like, oops, I'm over. And I would flip it again. But that's a good point for people who come to these videos and in this space and, they're not used to me or how I operate and all of that. That can be a real problem. So being sagacious about that criticism, that was criticism. I was like, that's valid. That actually was a good piece of advice. So, some things are worth it. Of course, obviously, when we're talking about business dreams, the criticisms are bigger than that. They're bigger than that, right? So, one great question to ask yourself is it true? If it's not true, forget it. Is what you're telling yourself true? If it's not true, forget it. And if it is true, you can take steps to fix it. So either it's true or it's not. But ask yourself that question, is it true? That's a part of being sagacious about that criticism. Another thing that I think was so good, this actually came from another YouTuber. She's a new YouTuber like myself. Please go follow her if you like her content. Her name's Dee Gautam. I hope I'm pronouncing it right. That's Dee Gautam, Gautham. And so she had a video I was watching around this space, and I love her tip about this, and it's called a success journal. She calls it a success journal. I a little bit had something like this, and it's basically where you're writing down where you had wins, your wins, where you really, really helped someone, when people were delighted with you. And so I used to do this over email, in different places that I worked. I would keep a kudos email folder, whenever I got like some really good praise, or someone said that was really awesome what you did, or they loved something, some project that I put out or whatever, a meeting that I led, anything, I would save it into my kudos folder. And even now as an entrepreneur, I have, things like that I'll keep because they're good to just reference and go back to, when you're having a bad day, when you're doubting yourself, when that stuff is starting to sink in, you're like, can I even do this? Am I in the right space? You're starting to really let those doubts sink in. That success journal, as Dee would put it, or that space, wherever you keep that kind of content, is such a good reminder of what you are good at. So I believe in that. I thought that was a great tip. Great job, Dee. Success journal. And that's a part of filling your bucket, right? Because so much of this space is negative. I mean, people are punching holes in you all the time. Life is punching holes in you all the time. If you think it's bad in the playing small world, over here where you're trying to serve the world, it gets even harder. It gets even harder over here because we're out of focus. There we are. In the serving the world side, it can get harder for real. The challenges are even greater. Not only are all of your safety net rules at risk, potentially, maybe you might have issues with keeping the lights on sometime. Maybe it might be hard to know where your next meal is coming from because you're in a new place as an entrepreneur. You're often struggling, unless you're married to somebody who's wealthy and they can take up that slack for you. A lot of times you are your sole breadwinner, especially younger people who are out there on their own trying to make it and be very independent. I get that space. I so do. And so filling your bucket is so important because we can't serve the world if we're not serving ourselves first. And a lot of this can go into self-care and all of that too. But success journal, I love that one. So I think that's also a nice way to kind of attack that playing small side of avoiding personal criticism, being afraid of personal criticism and what comes with the serving the world side, keep a success journal. I like that so much. And again, it can be an email folder. It can be an actual journal you write things down in. It can be your gratitude journal, and you just also like keep notes of like the really successful things that happened in your space. Success journal, I like it a lot. Okay, so another thing that holds us back in the playing small world is the belief that we know it all or enough. The belief that we know it all or enough, because that will limit us as well. We don't know it all, but it's so tempting. We're so driven to be problem solvers and always, find a solution. We're always solving people's problems all day, but we cannot continue to believe that we know it all or enough, because that means we're getting stagnant. We're in a stagnant place. And that's a part of on the playing small side. You want to play it big and serve the world, you got to know where your shortcomings are. So, be real honest about that and say, hey, I'm great at these things, part of that success journal stuff, but I'm not so great at these things, and this is what I need help with, or this is what I need to learn, right? So, again, sometimes the key is learning or outsourcing, okay? So I think that's another step, number 2, knowing when to learn or outsource. So if you know your weaknesses and where you need help in a team space, build your team. They can be outsourced, they can be vendors. I have a lot of people that I pay every month. Sometimes I feel like my money just goes to pay everybody else, and that's okay. At this moment, I am okay with that, because as long as there's so many things that are going right in the world. So I'm not too concerned about money going out the door all the time to pay everyone else, other than, of course, we always need more money. So I will say that there's lots of people that I do take care of every month, because I know it's not my forte. CPAs. I've got a CPA right now. I think she's wonderful, and she's saving my life at the moment. Before that, I had a guy CPA. He did the same thing. I was so thankful for him. Because that's not my world. Taxes, finances, that's not what I want to do, and it's not what I'm great at. And so, yes, I'm gladly give you that money to take care of that problem for me. Same thing for graphic design and all that. I mean, I am not a trained graphic designer. I can do what I do just like any one of you out there can. I have, I think, a very good eye. And I do have a good eye for simple, clean design, but I also know my limitations and where I need to hire on help, or if we're getting backlogged here, so I keep a good cadre of wonderful designers to pull from, and so that's my help there. Developers, there's only so much I can do from a web design standpoint. There's only, tweaks and things, of course, yes. Did I build my own website myself? Yes, but would I love to pay a designer to rework that, 5 years from now, or even shorter than that, just to make sure I'm fresh and relevant and updated and in the market with everyone else? Of course. So, there's just know that there's areas where you have weakness, and besides outsourcing is learning. There's many things I picked up and learned, the website stuff, starting a website from scratch for myself for the first time. There were a few learning curve things there, building up my own domain-based email that I can use with customers and all that, so I have an actual business email instead of a Gmail email. Those are small things. Bigger things like these videos. I had no idea about mics and lighting and what's a great camera to use and how do you edit and where do you get captions and all that to do this video stuff. Like, no clue whatsoever. That was a significant investment learning on my own, how to do Adobe Premiere Pro, and to edit your own videos. I mean, simple things. It took a minute to learn on my own, but that was something I knew I needed to do. And there's other things like that I definitely want to learn and pick up just so I have those skills on my own. Would I eventually pay someone to do all this editing and all that for me? Yes, gladly. As I grow, I want to be able to pay other people to do this stuff, but until then, it's a balance between learning and outsourcing. The things that you either don't do well, it's not your forte, or you don't have time for. Be honest about that stuff with yourself, and let's find good solutions for them, okay? It's not the end of the world. But that is a thing that will hold you back if you believe that you know it all and you can do it all, okay? So don't let that hold you back. Play in the big serve the world side, and not in the plain small world side, okay? All right, so another point about things that hold us back in the playing small world is all of the risks, the fear of what we could lose. We're afraid of what could happen if we jump into our business dream side, and go all in with that and really try what could happen. I love this advice that Tim Ferriss gives, and it's simply asking yourself the question. Literally the question is so simple, but it's so powerful. What's the worst that could happen? What's the worst that could happen? Could you lose your home? Could you, slip up on mortgage payments or rent payments on a particular month because you don't have enough cash flow coming in? Could your reputation get damaged because you didn't perform as well as you wanted to, and now your name is getting kind of slug around in the marketplace? What are all the worst things that could happen? Literally on a sheet of paper, list it out on a sheet of paper, and on one side list all the worst things that could happen, everything you could possibly be afraid of. Should you take this leap, right? Or should you do this thing that you're afraid of? List out all those things. Then think through, should those things happen? How quickly would it take you to recover? What's the likelihood that they would happen? And what could you do? What steps could you take to quickly recover? List all that out per item. And by the time you do that, you really, what ends up happening is that you realize what you are afraid of is largely 9 times out of 10 likely not to happen. And if it did, you could easily recover. There are things you can do to easily recover if you think it out and think it through. So that is a way to kind of minimize our fears and put some reality behind it, right? So I love that tip. Ask yourself, what's the worst that could happen? Also ask yourself, what would happen if you won? What would happen if it worked? Oh, yes, that's a good one. And there's some fear associated with that too. So, be real with yourself, do a little soul searching. Do this on some downtime on a Saturday when it's quiet, you have some time to yourself. Think to yourself, what's the worst that could happen, and what would happen if we won? And deal with the logistics and also the emotional sides of that too. Okay, so that's another tip, number 3. So 4 is dealing with that feeling of perceived fires, as I like to call them, perceived fires, and the allure, the attraction of fires. For some of us, fires are highly attractive. We like, again, throwing on that hero cape and being the one to rush in and save the day. Meanwhile, our priorities and the things that we said were most important are falling to the wayside each and every day because these fires are so attractive, and we much prefer to deal with these fires. Bad, because it's killing us and it's getting us away every day from our stated priorities, the things that we wrote down and we said were most important. So how do we deal with that? Well, one of the things is following the thinking first things first. There's actually a book called First Things First. First Things First, Tim Ferriss's book, The 4-Hour Work Week, actually falls in this space. The One Thing by Keller and Papasan is also a good one. We did a video about that one. First things first is being clear about what your priorities are. And when you do plan out, when you do ultimately break your 2-year plan down into your 6-month plan, into a 90-day plan, and even to a 1-month and this week plan, you did all that work to plan it all out. You'll be danged. I have to say danged because this video. I'll be danged if I do all that work and then get down to my 1 week and let some fires kill my priorities for that week. This is what I said I was going to do. I dang sure I'm going to make sure this gets done. So, doing all that work gives it gives me, and I hope it does the same for you, it gives me the fuel and the fire and the tenacity to be fearless about my time, because I said this was important, and I said this in this week, this is what's going to happen, and this is what I want to happen, this is what I want to do and concentrate on. And how much greater will I feel when I know that stuff gets done? And how crappy will I feel when I know none of it got done, because I let distractions, other people, perceived fires get in the way? Just saying. That is something you want to make sure you want to do. And so with this, there's plenty of tools that we can think about here. Time tracking is a good one. Time tracking is a good one. Whenever you're feeling like you're just not getting anywhere on things, take a day, track your day, track what you do. I promise you, if you sit here, these things are my friend, 30-minute timers, 5-minute timers. I'll flip this thing over and say 10 o'clock, right? I'll just put 10 o'clock on a piece of paper just like this and say, boom, 10 o'clock, let's go. And then I'll do some concentrated task, merely doing this, flipping a timer and writing down 10 o'clock. And then at the end, when this is all over and your half hour is over, and you go back and you're like, what did I just do in this past half hour? Right, I got XYZ done. I emailed so-and-so. Do that, do your time tracking stuff, write that through. That's powerful, because you're gonna really see where your time goes. Budget checks, because where your time is spent and where your money is spent is very reflective of your priorities. So do some budget tracking sometimes. Take a Saturday, go through your statements, go through your planning, and see where your money actually went versus where you meant for it to go, and see if things are aligning there. You can make, and that's very eye-opening. You can make adjustments there. Another thing I'm about to try is a Kanban Board, which is a Japanese thing. I actually got this idea from another YouTuber. Her name's Sarah Cannon. Sarah Cannon has a YouTube channel called Heart Breathings. It's really for authors and writers and all this, and I super love her content. I think she does a great job. And so saw her Kanban board. In her video, she mentioned it one time, so I decided to try one for myself. So you can kind of see the beginnings of my own Kanban board here. But basically the idea of it is you have some kind of board. She uses like a dry erase thing in her thing. It's like a sheet of dry erase, stickable wall stuff. I chose, because my space is small and I need it to be gorgeous at all times. I don't have space for that, like, extra space for, that kind of office wall space. So I got a mirror. Of course, who can't use extra mirror? And so I got a mirror, and you just use like this tape, washi tape. It's pretty decorative tape. I want to find like some kind of clearer tape that looks like, what do you call that? Like etching. It looks like etching. Very thin. So, until I get that, I've got this coppery stuff I'm using. And so basically on the top of the board, you put out these sticky notes, and they all align with the goals you've associated. Again, you got your 2-year dream happening, what you want to see happen in 2 years. That gets broken down into 6 months, what's possible in 6 months. 6 months gets broken down in half to a 90-day plan. 90 days gets broken down into this month. This month gets broken down into this week. And so for your 90-day plan, you then do sticky notes per each of your main goals. They're all in different colors. So this is the sticky pack that I'm going to use on my board. And so what you want to do with this is make each color for a different goal. I'm not necessarily going to use all these colors, but I like the color arrangements. And then you're going to write on each one a specific task for each goal, an important specific task to help you reach that goal. And so what you're going to do is put that on your board. And the middle row is meant to be small on purpose. It's only what you're focusing on from those goals this week. And then once you've accomplished those goals, those stickies are knocked out. Dominoes, if you read the One Thing book, you can think of them as dominoes. Then you move those down to your wonderful accomplished area. Awesomely accomplished area, and you feel great about that. I'm so looking forward to this. So that's a great way to deal with excuses, which is a big thing that a lot of people suffer with, whether we like to admit that or not. This is a quote about excuses that you'll all appreciate, and many of you may know. It says, "Excuses are monuments of nothing that build bridges to nowhere. Those who choose to use these tools of incompetence seldom become anything but nothing at all." And all that means is that excuses are cheap. I mean, we come up with them every day. And so let's stop these excuses and get somewhere. Let's stop in the playing small world. Excuses belong in the playing small world. We're trying to serve the world. There's no room for excuses and serve the world, right? So I'm using the Kanban board to help combat all those excuses and perceived fire issues, okay? So we talked about being sagacious about criticism, our success journals, asking yourself, what's the worst that can happen and what would happen if we won? Doing that on our sheets. And then also remembering, first things first, doing that Kanban board, okay? So that we're really getting and eliminating excuses. And so there's another thing about remembering about negative self-talk and all of that. And I want to remind you of a quote from one of my favorite people I quoted at the beginning of this video, Marianne Williamson. And that quote is about how your playing small does not serve the world. I'm going to put that quote up on the screen so you can read it for yourself, and also down below. But that quote helps me so much. And it's so helpful. It's my 5th point here. You have to remember that we were made to shine. The quote talks about how it's our light, not our darkness, that most frightens us. And so, truthfully, if we really thought about it, the excuses, everything that we do, all of that is all done because it's safe to play small. We're fine with shrinking so that others around us don't feel insecure. And that helps no one. Actually, when we shine, it actually frees others to shine. And that's what we were meant to do, serve the world through our gifts and through our talents. So I hope that's what you do. All right. Thank you so much for being here. My time is now up with you, and come back next week. Let me know what you think about the Kanban board, the success journal, and don't forget to subscribe below. The ADS Agency, we're everywhere: Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, and Instagram. And that's all from me today. Cheers, people. Love ya. Let me know your feedback, and bye. I super love this.